Welcome to the January edition of What's in Bloom at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. We put together a sheet each month of plants that are in bloom to hand out to our visitors here at the garden. And so we're going to walk you through a selection of what's in bloom for January 2024. A lot of our familiar garden bulbs, like the tulips and daffodils and hyacinths and so on, have a Mediterranean origin. But the country with the most bulbs of all is South Africa. And some of the wonderful bulbs from there are present in horticulture here, but really not as well known, and they should be. A good example is Lachenalia. This is a large genus, and this one here that's coming into bloom now is Lachenalia viridiflora, meaning green flowers. Over here, we see Lachenalia punctata, which is just finishing now with its pink flower. So the flower color is quite variable in Lachenalia, but the extraordinary blue-green color of Lachenalia viridiflora really stands out. And it's just starting to flower now and will be for most of January. Lachenalia viridiflora. One of the groups that California is famous for in horticultural circles is the manzanitas, members of the genus Arctostaphylos. And they are well known for their beautiful smooth bark, which oftentimes is red-brown in color, and for their wonderful little dainty urn-like flowers. And this is one of the early ones to bloom, Arctostaphylos refugioensis. It comes from the mountains near Santa Barbara, where it grows in chaparral, and its little clusters of white flowers are really coming out now. Lots of flowers in each cluster and lots of clusters on the bush. So the manzanitas could be a small tree in some cases, but usually they're a bush. And this is a very good example of one with its beautiful, smooth, in this case more brown colored bark, and its clusters of small flowers, Arctostaphylos refugioensis. The Bromeliaceae, or bromeliad family, is a family of monocots, all from the Americas. One of the genera in the bromeliad family is ananas, the pineapple. That's the only one that's a commercial crop, but many of them are widely used as ornamentals. And one of the South American genera in the family is Deuterocohnia. So the original plants in Deuterocohnia had rather large rosettes, or let's say about a foot across or so. And these had tall, wiry stems with narrow tubular flowers. And this plant here, with its tiny rosettes and very short flowers, seemed like a different animal and was put in the genus Abromatella. But when some plants were discovered that were in between, they realized that Abromatella and Deuterocohnia were too close to be separate genera, and Deuterocohnia being the older genus, they were all moved into Deuterocohnia. So this plant's name is now Deuterocohnia brevifolia, and the old name was Abromatella brevifolia. In any case, it's from the Andes, and it has many, many heads in a plant and looks like a living boulder of little tiny green heads, and then these little green flowers that peek out from between the leaves. So it's just coming into flower now, and the flowers are in little clusters of several flowers just peeking out from the leaves. But because the flower color and the leaf color is rather close, it's easy to miss this plant as you walk around the garden. But when you look at it up close, they really are quite beautiful. Abromatella brevifolia. You might have heard California's climate referred to as a Mediterranean climate. There are only 5 areas in the world that have a Mediterranean climate. That is to say, the rain falls in the winter, the summers are long and dry, and the climate is mild. And those 5 are the Mediterranean itself, the western part of South Africa, California, central Chile, and the western and southern part of Australia. So plants that come from these areas, because their climate is similar, tend to do well in our gardens here in California. And this plant here is one of the Australian plants from the Mediterranean climate zone of Australia, and it's called Chamelaucium. Now, we got this just labeled Chamelaucium cultivar without a name, but clearly it is either a hybrid of or a form of Chamelaucium uncinnatum, because the shiny, round, red buds are like those of that species. Chamelaucium belongs to the family Myrtaceae, the myrtle family. And there are lots of plants from Australia, including the eucalyptus, that belong to the same family. The flowers on Chamelaucium, however, look more like those of Leptospermum, the tea trees, also in the Myrtaceae. In any case, it's a very nice plant for the garden because it has the kind of fine texture that doesn't create dense shade, so it shields plants from the full brunt of the summer sun, and has a nice fine texture to contrast with the bold textures of things like agaves and aloes. So doing really well here in the garden, Chamelaucium cultivar. January and February are a special time of the year at the Ruth Bancroft Garden for the aloes. So many of the aloes come into bloom in the wintertime. Behind me is Aloe Tangerine, which is a hybrid of Aloe arborescens and Aloe ferox that came to us from the Huntington. But there are many, many aloes that are coming into flower at this time of the year, and their fiery colors are a wonderful touch of color in the wintertime. We have several aloes on our What's in Bloom list for this month, but there are many others that are in bloom, and you really should come to the garden to see them for yourself in all their glory. That brings us to the end of our January edition of What's in Bloom at the Ruth Bancroft Garden. In addition to the plants that are featured on this month's What's in Bloom, there are lots of other things in the garden to be seen, some of them that don't last a whole month and never make it onto What's in Bloom. So by all means, come to the garden and see them for yourself if you have the chance to do so. If you live farther afield and can't come to visit the garden, well, check out our website. We have lots of classes and other offerings on our website. And then we have pictures posted, pictures of previous editions of What's in Bloom, pictures of our plant highlights, and pictures that I post on Tumblr and other ones that are posted on Instagram. So lots to see on our website. We encourage you to come to the garden anytime you're in the area. And since there are so many different things that come into bloom at all different times of the year, you have to come back again and again to catch it all. The Ruth Bancroft Garden in Walnut Creek, California.